Good afternoon, everyone. This is today's webinar for the masterclass. My name is Emily. Some of you might remember me as well. And I'm originally from the UK, and I'm coming to you from Milan today. And I'm with my colleague.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Michelle. I'm originally from Pakistan, and I've been living in Milan for about 3 years now. And I teach in Milano Meravigli with Emily.
Okay. And this is mine and Michelle's first webinar together. So we're excited to see each other's faces for the first time in several weeks. So we'll see how we go today. So we're talking about medical emergencies. Hopefully not so much the coronavirus. We'll probably talk about some other emergencies. Cheer each other up with some other problems. Hi, Johnny.
Johnny. Hey, Johnny. Nice to meet you. We've had Johnny in another class as well, so it's not the first time that I've met him. Have you met him in your other classes?
I have, yes. I remember Johnny. Welcome. And anyone else that we do have with us, please write your name and where you are from as well. Okay, so Michelle, do you want to take this slide?
Sure. Medical emergencies. In this activity, explaining medical conditions and describing pain. So usually when we go to the doctor or even the pharmacy, if we're looking for medicine or we have something wrong with us, you usually have to describe your condition to the doctor or the pharmacist so they can prescribe the right medication. So hopefully we'll get into that. And answering questions about medical history and insurance. Okay, so this is a little interesting because Italy has a universal healthcare, right? Most countries do not have universal healthcare, and I think the best example would be America. So, but in Italy, we also have insurance. If you work for a company, if you're employed by someone, the company usually provides health insurance. If not, you do usually have your card, your health card. Medical history. So medical history is everything that has happened to you medically. If you've ever had a surgery, you've ever had a serious illness, you have an allergy, all of that would come under medical history.
Yeah, any allergies as well. That can be quite important.
Absolutely. And Emily actually gave me some medication for my allergies. I have some severe hay fever. So hay fever is, when you sneeze and your eyes water and your nose is runny because of spring, because of the pollen in the air. So I usually get a very bad case of that just around now, springtime. And Emily's hay fever tablets have been working wonders.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because every time I sneeze, I'm so afraid my neighbor is going to think I have the coronavirus.
It's not a symptom though.
True, but she's 83.
Okay. Yes, it's worrying. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to scare her. So I've been like, allergy tablet, let me pop one ASAP.
Oh. Okay, yeah, I'm allergic to penicillin, so
really?
I'm always very worried that I'll have a major health problem and they'll want to give me penicillin. That would go badly. I think.
Definitely.
So that kind of
I have,
thing is always on your medical history
yes,
as well.
definitely. We have Alessia here. Alessia from Treviso.
Hi, Alessia.
Elisa
Elisa, yeah, I remember Elisa from last week, I think.
and
And Marco,
Marco.
yes. Welcome, Marco. Okay, it's lovely to see people returning to the webinars. It
Hmm.
really encourages us.
It does.
Okay, so maybe we can start by talking about medical emergencies while you're traveling or while you're in a different country. So we have
Hmm.
travel trauma, which we hope to avoid. We hope to avoid really stressful and difficult circumstances when abroad, but it does
Yep,
happen. Um,
absolutely.
so, what are some potential medical emergencies you could experience while traveling abroad? What do you think in the comments? At the moment, I am very, very pleased that a friend of mine who was about to move to New York is actually
Hmm.
still in the UK because I was very
Right.
worried that he would
Hmm.
be without without accommodation, without friends, without anything during this crisis. So I was very concerned about that. So that I think would count as a medical emergency abroad in a
Definitely.
quarantine alone.
I think the most common medical emergency would be a heart attack,
Hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
healthy people have heart attacks as well. It is
Hmm.
entirely possible for someone who's young to have a heart attack. And I think that is very scary if you are in
Hmm.
a foreign country.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe similar to what we said earlier. I mean, I think we'll continue to give some answers, but please, if you do have other ideas, write to us. Another possible
Hmm.
one is similar to what we said earlier with allergies. If you have an allergic reaction
Mm.
to something, because maybe you might not know what it was a reaction to. And it can be
Hmm.
difficult to know the vocabulary in another country if they don't speak your language. So
Hmm.
things like that could be very stressful too.
Absolutely. And even something as simple or as an allergy
Hmm.
can turn out to be really dangerous if it isn't treated correctly, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think
Um,
we
I,
have. Hmm.
I think another one that we could talk about is an aneurysm,
Mm.
right? So an aneurysm is a blood clot somewhere in your system. So basically, the walls of your artery become weak, and then they create a. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, so this is my layman's understanding of it.
Yeah.
Right, and then they become weak, and that creates this. It's not a blood clot exactly, but the walls bulge out, and that weakening of the walls can burst, and then of course that leads to internal bleeding, and then death.
Hmm. And that's the spelling. If anyone wants the spelling of an aneurysm.
Okay, Elisa says the difference. He says that you could have an emergency. You could have any emergency. You could also have here,
Hmm.
but the difference is that you're uncomfortable because you're far from home, and maybe you can't heal properly
Hmm.
because it depends on the country you are. Absolutely,
Hmm.
Elisa. You could have the same kind of emergency. If you have a heart attack in Italy, you have a heart attack in the UK, still a heart
Hmm.
attack, but the difference is definitely comfort level.
Yeah.
Johnny says emergencies due to different foods. Right, so I believe he's talking about what we've covered, which is
Hmm.
allergies.
Yeah. Great answer, Johnny. Okay. Um,
Any other?
yeah, I just want to go back to Elisa's comment for a second because
Mm-hmm.
there's an interesting point to make about verbs here. So it
Mm.
said you cannot get healed properly. So that's a really great answer. But healed is normally about what happens naturally. So it's not about being given medicine so often. Michelle, correct me if you use it
Absolutely.
differently. But for example, you cannot heal properly. It's about what happens to your body, what your body does. So I think you mean you cannot get treated. You cannot get treated. So treated or treatment is about what medicine, what care you receive in a hospital or from a doctor. So that can be medicine, it can be an X-ray, it can be anything you need. So you cannot get treated properly.
Or maybe she meant to use the word cure, that you cannot get
Hmm.
cured
Yeah,
properly.
yeah. Cure saying you cannot get completely well through treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's very interesting the slight differences we have in the verbs
Mm-hmm.
in this topic area. Marco, a fracture. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Or an accident.
Yeah, those can be very scary anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
especially in a hospital in another country. And also, if you do break
That,
your arm or your leg, that can be quite a long process. So you could be concerned about when you can go home again or anything like that. So yeah, very scary. Have you ever had a medical emergency while traveling, Michelle?
no, I don't think I have, which I am very, very, very grateful
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. I'm trying to remember. But I think
No,
I would
no.
probably remember that.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I
yeah,
would definitely remember being in a hospital in a foreign country.
yeah. I think maybe when I was on holiday with my family once, someone was stung by a jellyfish, which is like,
Ooh.
I know, which is like having some poison in through a bite. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think we did go to the hospital for that. Um, but I was quite young, so I don't remember it very well.
I think my brother was stung, now that you mention it. I think my brother was also stung
Hmm.
by a jellyfish, a very particular kind of jellyfish. They're called blue bottles because they look
Hmm.
like minuscule blue bottles.
Wow.
They're beautiful, and they have like a long thread
Hmm.
dangling, which is actually what they sting you with.
Right.
They're beautiful, but they're very dangerous in terms of how much they hurt. And my
Hmm.
brother did have get bitten, and I think he peed on himself, and that helped.
Yeah, I think my stepmom did as well. But we still went to the hospital as a precaution, I think.
That's
Um,
smart. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
thinking this doesn't seem right.
no, I know. I just remember, isn't there an episode of Friends where that happens as well?
Yeah,
I
with if
think there might be.
yeah, if
But
you guys are fans of the TV show Friends, there's an episode with Joey, Chandler, and Monica, and they're playing around at the on the beach on the sand, and one of them gets stung.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So there you go. That's something for you to watch in this quiet time. Um, have any of you in please tell us if you've had a medical emergency on holiday. What did you do? Was it you? Was it someone else? So Elisa, good
mhm.
question. Yeah, to be stung. That's right. So we normally use the passive. So the verb is to sting, which is what, for example, a bee does. A bee stings you, or a jellyfish also does that, and they release poison. And say, I was stung by a jellyfish or by a bee.
Right. So the rule is for animals which release poison when they bite you, we
Hmm.
usually use the word to sting. So scorpions, to be stung by a scorpion, sting, sting, stung.
I think it's stung for the past simple as well. I
Yeah, I
think.
believe that as well.
Yes, but you're right, Elisa, that is the general rule
Yeah.
for that kind of verb. Yeah.
And do you know what about snakes, Emily? Do snakes
Yeah. I
bite or
think you
sting?
I think you can use sting, but I think bite is more common.
Right, but with snakes we say bite.
Yeah, I would say bite for snakes.
Okay. If you guys have anything to share about anything that you've been through, let us know. In the meantime, we are going to continue discussing potential medical emergencies. There's one
Hmm.
that I think people should really know about is when you have
Hmm.
your appendix removed,
Good one.
right? So that this is when your appendix, which is an organ which we don't use anymore. I think we
Hmm.
used to use it a few hundred years ago, but the human
Yeah, no one
body
knows
has,
why.
yeah, the human body has evolved to not needing it anymore. And
Hmm.
sometimes it gets inflamed and it bursts, and that's very dangerous. So you need to be rushed to the hospital and have that removed.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's the same with tonsils as well. What you have at the back of your
Mm.
throat, you can get tonsillitis and have your tonsils removed.
Have you ever had tonsillitis?
I haven't had my tonsils removed, but I have had tonsillitis. Very minor case.
But it's not
Apparently,
fun either way.
no, it's not fun at all. I think I want hot food or I want cold food. It's very easy to swallow. Yeah, it's not fun at all.
Okay, Elisa says maybe to sting is more when they have the sting like bees and scorpions. Absolutely, Elisa.
Hmm.
Bees, scorpions, jellyfish, they all sting.
Hmm. Yeah, that's things like snakes, or I'm trying to think of another example of something that bites. Any animal can bite. The dog can bite. Um, but I think maybe snakes have a different type of poison. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe
A
that's why.
stingray
Mm.
stings.
Yes. Or a wasp, something very similar to a bee. A wasp can sting as well.
Okay. If you guys have any questions, let us know. In the meantime, we are going to move on.
Yeah. So, some more words to describe pain. So, it's sometimes useful to know what type of pain you are feeling specifically. So, what adjectives can you think of? So, we have some examples here. We have intense, throbbing, gnawing, stabbing, and dull. So some of those you may know, some of them might be new to you.
So it's interesting the way you pronounce the word knowing,
Mm,
right? So the G is silent.
yeah.
Okay, so you take out the G and it's just knowing.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
intense. How would you describe an intense pain?
So an intense pain, I would say, is not something you can ignore. You feel it very heavily over a period of time. I would say quite long. It doesn't stop, and it's something that stops you thinking about anything else.
Right, so the only thing you can focus on is the pain itself.
Yes, that's what I would say.
Okay, how about throbbing?
So throbbing, I would use for something like a very bad headache, where
Mm,
you can kind of feel your pulse through the
right.
pain. You can feel the do 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 rhythm. You can feel it moving. You can feel the blood
Yeah,
moving.
absolutely. So it's one of those headaches that go boom, 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 boom,
Yeah,
and your head is
exactly.
like, oh.
Yeah. Sometimes we also say a pounding headache, which is exactly
Mm.
the same thing.
Okay, so knowing, we know how to pronounce
Mm.
it, but what does it mean?
Yeah, so this is not one I would use as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because gnawing literally more often is when you kind of eat a little of something. If you
Mm-hmm.
imagine the way that a rabbit eats, for example, or a mouse eats, they
Yeah.
gnaw at something. So when it's about pain, it's quite persistent. It kind of keeps going. Um, so it's something that slowly begins to annoy you more and more over time, I think.
Okay, so to know is a verb.
Sorry, it is
To
to.
know, to know. So that is a
Mhm.
verb to
It
take
is a
tiny
verb.
bites, right?
Yes.
But knowing is an adjective.
Hmm. That's right, and that's the same for most of these ones that end in ing. So we have
Mm-hmm.
to throb as well. Is like to pulse, to pound, and to stab. We'll come to stabbing in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so gnaw, as Michelle says here, to take tiny bites of something. So it's like you imagine that something is feeding on you. It's like you are the food. It's like the pain is gnawing on you.
But it does feel like that, right?
It
When
does.
you have when you are in pain and something that is persistent, it
Hmm.
does feel like it's taking a little bit of you each
Hmm.
minute. You feel like less.
Yeah.
You feel like less of yourself as time passes by because all
Hmm.
you can think about is the pain.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. I'm trying to think of an example of that. Maybe something like toothache, maybe,
Definitely.
where you can ignore it initially, but then it builds over time, and suddenly all you can think about is the pain.
A toothache is a really good example.
Hmm. Yeah, I think toothache and earache are the two of the worst pains you can have in some ways. I think earache is really horrible.
Hmm.
Um, that's another one, maybe for throbbing earache. Um, so you can feel your pulse. What about stabbing, Michelle?
So I would describe a stabbing pain as a sharp and sudden pain.
Hmm.
And it's the kind of pain that I think affects your digestive system,
Hmm.
right? You get like a stabbing pain. So it's very sudden, it's very sharp, but it's repetitive. So each wave of pain, it's like someone is stabbing you through the stomach.
Hmm.
What else could we describe as a stabbing pain?
I think often if you run and you
Mm-hmm.
suddenly get a pain in your side, that's probably a stabbing
Mm.
pain. We call that stitch, that type of pain. If you get
Right, when you
stitch.
have a stitch in your side, which usually happens when you haven't had enough water
Hmm.
and you start running, you start working out, whatever physical activity you're doing, and then suddenly the lactic acid in your body really builds up and it
Hmm.
causes this really bad stitch in your side.
Hmm. Yes. It's, and yes, as Elisa said, when you're being stabbed, literally,
Yeah,
maybe. It's very true. So if you have an injury with a knife, that probably is a stabbing pain. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
we don't know for sure, having never experienced it.
no, no. And yeah, that brings up a good point. Whereas to stab, the verb, is also the action when you're eating. It's what you do with your fork, for example. You stab food.
Right, yeah, you stab a piece of lettuce, a leaf of
Hmm.
lettuce, you stab a piece
Very
of
healthy,
apple.
Michelle.
I don't know what else you stab. Everything else, I just bury my face into it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay,
Yeah.
dull.
Ooh. So dull pain to me is like background pain. It's like
Right.
something that is always there. Sometimes it's strong, but more often it's something that you can ignore.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean it's not serious, but it doesn't feel as serious.
Right. So the pain is not excruciating.
Hmm. Yeah, which is another good word, excruciating pain.
So we have so many words for so many adjectives for strong, severe aches and pains.
Hmm.
What about dull pain? So we have dull. What else can we say if the pain is not severe?
Hmm. Um, Probably maybe
Weak.
mild pain,
Mm,
or weak as well. I don't, and dull, of course, is not pain specific. Dull just means boring or um, not very obvious, not very bright. Um, so a lot of these weaker ones are not pain specific, as far as I can think of them anyway, which is
mhm.
quite interesting. It's like we know we need the words for these situations, but it's not important enough to create new ones. So we use ones that are maybe more common with temperature or more about strength in general, which is quite interesting. A good question from Paola. Hi, Paola.
Mm,
Could one say
mhm,
death pain? Hmm. What do you
mhm.
think, Michelle?
Um, I've never actually used that. How about you?
No, I've never used that. You can maybe say something is deafening if
Hmm.
it makes you feel deaf. Maybe if something is so either literally loud or metaphorically loud that you can't concentrate on anything else.
Right.
But not deaf alone.
So could you say I have a loud pain?
Mm, no, I don't think we normally use sound adjectives for pain, but deafening I think we can use to mean overwhelming in some circumstances.
That's a good
Yeah,
one. Or overwhelming. So it's so intense that it has overwhelmed you. Death
right.
pain in so Elisa clarifies that for us. She says death
Hmm.
pain in Italian is what you may mean when you say throbbing. Okay.
I like that. It's interesting. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Elisa.
Yeah. Okay. So we have lots of vocab there. If you do have
Hmm.
any other questions, let us know. Michelle, did you have any other adjectives you wanted to mention?
I thought of excruciating. We've done that. We've done instance. Shooting.
Shooting is a good
Shooting.
one. Yeah. And when do we use shooting pain?
I would use it if I had a pain in an ache in my leg,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so it's like so shooting pain is usually associated with pain that's triggered by your nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
right? So chronic pain is often described as shooting
Yeah.
pain.
Okay. Yeah. Because Yeah, and Elisa, we have
So,
a piercing pain. Sorry, but I'll let you take
absolutely.
on.
Good work, Lisa.
Hmm.
Penetrating.
Okay. Um, yeah, lancinating is not one I have heard. Have you heard that, Michelle? Yeah, it may
Um,
be a word. I don't know.
I think I have heard of it, but I've never used it. Like I may have come across it
Hmm.
in passing, but I've never actually used it. I think it's an old-fashioned word.
Hmm. Yeah, so maybe that's more technical or more medical.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you, Elisa. I want to mention chronic again because that was an interesting
Mm,
one. So, chronic can be when you have a pain throughout your life. We often talk about a chronic illness, which is not something that you can cure. It's something that you would live with forever. I think
and mhm.
Lady Gaga has a chronic disease. I think chronic tiredness or something like that. That's the opposite of what you could call acute pain. When
Mhm.
you have a sudden pain, it's not normal. It's not something that you live with. It's just a one-time thing.
I think the most common example of these kinds of pains would be headaches.
Hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
some people, my cousin, for example, suffers from chronic illness, from chronic headaches, so migraines.
Hmm.
Right. So whatever she does, she can take any kinds of many kinds of pain medication, but nothing really helps. So she has chronic migraines.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It
My
is
mom has them
really,
as well.
oh wow, I'm
It's
so
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. It can make life difficult if you do have that. Yeah, so it's good to be aware of the way time can impact what you say as well.
Hmm.
Okay. And speaking of time, that was an unintentional segue, but we have now, how can we talk about progressive pain? How can we talk
Hmm.
about how it changes over time? So here we have, I have been feeling ill since Friday or for
Hmm.
5 hours here. So we have the present perfect continuous, talking about when a time started, emphasizing the length of time there. So how else can we talk about progressive pain?
Okay, that's interesting. Progressive pain, right? So progressive
Hmm.
pain, you can feel the same way for a certain amount of time, or you keep feeling worse as time goes by. So R1, it's bearable. R2, it becomes a little more difficult. And by the time it's hour 5, you're overwhelmed by the pain,
Hmm.
right? So you could say the pain has been getting worse every hour.
Hmm.
So that would be progressive. It's interesting that we use the present continuous here.
Hmm.
Why is that?
Yeah. So we have the present perfect continuous, which is saying uh, this is the start point in the
Mhm.
past, and it's really emphasizing the length of time. That's what this tense
Mm,
does. It's saying I have been feeling ill. It's not I have felt ill, because that's saying what the result is. That's you're more interested in this moment. But with this tense, it's saying this is continuing. This started and it continued and it is continuing now and now and now. And you can feel each moment passing with this tense.
right. So
Which
the
I think with
emphasis,
pain, we really feel each moment of the pain.
absolutely, each second. So the emphasis is on A, duration. So you're
Mhm.
emphasizing the waiting period. So you're focusing on the activity itself. And it's something that started in the past and continues up to the present moment.
Mhm.
Okay, Elisa has an interesting question.
Mhm. Yeah, I've had this stabbing pain coming and going for 3 hours. Okay, yeah. So you would that's really good. You can say that. I think you could also just make the stabbing pain the subject. So
Hmm.
you can say this stabbing pain has been coming and going, probably. I think that's what I would say. Do you agree with me, Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely make the pain, stabbing pain, the subject, so I
Mm-hmm.
could focus on it and then follow it up, as you said.
And I really like the coming and going. I think often that's a really nice way to talk about pain.
Hmm. Because that is definitely how pain functions, right?
Hmm.
Stabbing pain is like you're fine for 10 minutes and then you're in pain for 20 minutes and then you're fine for 30 minutes.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think those are the most useful phrases.
Hmm.
Um, oh, we have another question from Gianni. What's the most appropriate adjective to say that the pain is getting worse and worse? Ah, good question.
What do you think, Em?
Hmm. I think you can say, um, well, you can just say the pain is getting worse and worse. You
Hmm.
can also say maybe deteriorating. You can say the probably not the pain is deteriorating, but my condition is deteriorating because that just means it's getting worse. Condition is deteriorating.
But we could also use the adjective that you spoke to us earlier about progressive, right?
Hmm.
Progressively. So we could turn it into an adverb and say the pain is getting progressively worse.
Yes.
So over
Yeah.
here we use an we sorry,
Mhm. I'll just write this up for you.
no worries. I'm sorry. I don't know if my connection is bad today, but I'm losing
It's okay.
audio. Okay,
Okay. So I think we are probably ready to move on. Do you have any other
definitely.
comments?
Mm-mm, I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so this is onto our medical history now. So this is quite useful if you do
Mm.
find yourself in a hospital abroad. Elisa, yes, you could also say the pain is worsening. You can, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm,
good.
absolutely.
Good. So here we have some questions and answers. Okay.
Okay, what's your medical history? If a doctor asked you, what's your medical history? What would you say?
Oh wow. I I would say I'm not taking any medicine at the moment. Um, I would mention any past serious illnesses that would make a difference to the situation. So,
Mm-hmm.
if, for example, if I have tonsillitis now and I'd had it in the past, I would say if I have any chronic diseases, I would also say I'm allergic to penicillin in my case.
Oh, that's nice. You definitely need to mention that.
Yeah, so we have another example here, which is I'm on an antihistamine, which is what Michelle mentioned earlier, the medicine to help you breathe if you are allergic to something, and I take a daily pill for my cholesterol.
Lisa has made an interesting comment. She says some of the other teachers told her that
Hmm.
to worsen is more of a medical verb. Um,
Hmm.
I think so as well. We usually use
Hmm.
it for medical reasons or for fitness reasons. So health and fitness.
Yeah,
Change for the worse.
or an official reason. You might read it in a newspaper. or
Mm.
about a situation. So I would say it's more formal, maybe more technical in general, and medical is part of that.
Right, you're absolutely right, because in politics, we could say the worsened diplomatic relations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if you are a psychologist and your patient's behavior, in fact, if you are a mother and your child's behavior has become progressively worse, you can say his behavior has worsened this past week. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not really formal and nor is it medical, but you could use that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. About a state or a situation, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah. A really, really great question. Thank you. So, Michelle, we also have the question, how much pain are you in? So, what's
Mm.
a possible question there, a possible answer there?
I would honestly just put it on a scale. I would put it on
Mm-hmm.
a scale of 1 to 10. So,
Yeah.
how much pain are you in? If a doctor asked me that, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's where 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. If it
Mm-hmm.
was really bad pain, I would say 8. How would
Yeah.
you go about it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good and clear way to answer it. I think also you could use any of the language that we talked about before. You could
Mm-hmm.
say the pain is increasing. You could say what type of pain you feel that we talked about, and
Mm-hmm.
also if your pain is coming and going, that's a really good thing to mention there as well. But I really like the idea of on a scale of 1 to 10 because it really helps to talk about the strength in a way that people can understand quite quickly.
Okay, so on the patient side, we have I'm on an antihistamine and take a daily pill for my cholesterol. Okay,
Hmm.
so what would be the question?
Yeah. So this is related to medical history, but is not quite the same. So this is about
Hmm.
what medication you take now.
Right, so the difference between your medical history and your medication. Your medical history is in the past.
Hmm.
Like Emily said, she's not on any medication right now, but she is allergic to penicillin.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a pretty important one.
Yeah.
But but
some some drama at your house, Michelle, I think.
something just broke. I'm not sure what it is. I'll find out in 10 minutes, but I'm sure it's fine. Okay, so Marco says, how much pain do you have? Is that correct or incorrect?
Hmm.
So, what do you think, Em?
I think it's correct. It's okay, but it's less common. We normally say, "Are you in?" It's normally about what state of pain are you in.
Yeah, absolutely. Elisa, are you psychic? Because that was definitely a plate that broke in my house.
Hopefully, no medical emergency along with the plate.
I
Except
hope
for
so
the
too.
plate, it probably is an emergency for the plate. I'm not sure you'll save it.
Okay, I have traveler's insurance. Here's my health card. So, one of the things that has really impressed me with Italy of late is their healthcare,
Hmm.
right? Um, it has as a country, I'm sure, like any other country, has its faults, but I feel the healthcare system is definitely commendable because if you go into a hospital, even if you have no healthcare, you're in Italy and for some reason you don't have healthcare, you go to a hospital, like if you're a migrant. Um, you go to a healthcare, you go to a hospital, it's an emergency, and they will take care of you, no questions asked. And I don't believe they expect you to pay them back
Hmm.
after they've saved your life. Whereas in the US, if you had an emergency, for sure they would take you to the hospital, they would fix your situation, but then you would get a big fat bill and invoice in the mail. So I'm pretty impressed with that. With any thoughts, Em?
Yes, it's the UK is probably more like Italy in that sense. We have a national health service. I'm not sure how it works with people who are maybe not documented, but I think like Italy, you would probably not be expected to pay for things. But I think it will be very interesting in other places to think about how it will change in the next few years as these systems really struggle. So now in the UK, the system is very overloaded, and we're not sure how long it will survive. But here's hoping it will, because it's very useful, very important.
Absolutely. When you're traveling abroad, it's mandatory, at least I imagine it's mandatory. It's also common sense to have travel insurance or health insurance, right? So if you happen to fall sick abroad when you are on vacation or on a business trip, then the health insurance or the travel insurance you have will cover any medical emergencies. And I think it's incredibly useful, and it's a really smart option. And some people actually don't go ahead and get the travel insurance because most of the times they're okay. But travel insurance and health insurance is for that 2% when you're not okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I think for me, if I'm going somewhere longer than 2 days, I would probably do it then. I think if you do
Definitely.
over 24 hours, I understand why people are a bit uncertain of whether to do it. It's more of a decision. But if it is a longer holiday, the chances of an accident are increased, of course. So it's
Absolutely.
useful. Okay. Um, so I just want to mention some of the language that came up. So just I can't feel my, obviously that's quite self-explanatory, but it's a useful phrase. If I can't feel my legs, for example, you might say that's because you broke a leg, or it's a useful phrase there. Um, how do you plan on paying? What is your plan? It's just quite a nice, polite phrase there. How do you plan on doing something? But I think most of the languages are things that we talked about before.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we have maybe two more minutes or so, not very long. So maybe we will just recap for the rest of the time. So what types of pain did we talk about? See what you can remember.
In the meantime, Johnny agrees with us on about insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, and write to us and tell us what kind of pain you've experienced. So give us, for example, I've had a throbbing headache. I've had a shooting leg pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of them I have experienced at one time or another.
Absolutely.
I'm lucky enough not to have a chronic condition.
Praise the Lord.
Well, yeah. So yeah, but this is just because your masterclass now. This is really helpful to think about the nuances of a situation, think about the details, because that really helps you to use the language more. You want to really widen that vocabulary, which is what today is really about.
Absolutely. It's about those tiny differences like heal and cure and treatment, right? They essentially mean the same to, get better, to be on the road to recovery, but they have different connotations. Like Emily said, Heal is mostly associated when your body, recovers. So it's natural. And cure is when you take treatments and you feel better. Okay, Johnny says that he was in pain when with my meniscus years ago.
Okay.
What kind of pain was it? Alessia talks about annoying pain. Fantastic.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So I'm afraid we are out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you do have any final questions, let us know. Michelle, is there any other comment you want to make?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it when you guys interact with us and share your feedback, your opinions, your thoughts. It makes the
I
lesson
agree.
so much more interesting, right, Em?
It really does, yes, and it's lovely to see some of you again,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope you're enjoying them as well. So have a lovely afternoon, guys. We will see you. We'll probably see you another day if we have masterclass again. Okay, thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
one.